Hello, everyone. Welcome. We are live here on our Facebook live stream. Thank you so much for joining us. I am Emmy Grimes. I'm an educator and advisor here at Senergy Medical Group. We have our amazing Scott Jensen joining us today with Tennant Products, our manufacturer behind all the supplements we use and provide you guys out there. We're so excited we have him here today. He's going to be talking about 6 myths about nutrition and supplements that we hear often and that are something that, we want to talk to you about. And I think it's going to be a great topic. All righty, guys, we have the amazing Scott Jensen. He's got an incredible story that brought him to Tennant Products, and I'm so excited for you to also hear that. So without further ado, please welcome Scott Jensen.
Hi, guys. Thanks for having me here. Emmy, thanks for your time and for allowing me to be here. I certainly appreciate that. I guess we'll start.
Tell me about your story. Yeah.
So several years ago, I woke up and I couldn't walk. I was numb from the knees down. My hands were numb. That led to an ER visit, which then led to a hospital admission. They said, well, it's probably MS. Here's a wheelchair and some pain meds. Follow up with a neurologist. I'm like, okay, well, wait a minute. I was working as a business consultant, running a couple of businesses, had a great family. I was riding my bike, 100 miles a week and just kind of running my body into the ground. And all of a sudden I can't function. And I'm told that, well, I'll probably be in a wheelchair. So that led down another road. So I ended up calling my sports and spine guy. He sent me to a functional medicine place and they said, okay, well, let's look at your life. So they found out, well, I actually had a crazy amount of toxins in my body. I needed to rethink my nutrition. I needed to rethink my sleep, my exercise, the whole bit. And so it was like, okay, well, if you want to learn to walk, you have to regroup on all of this stuff. So that started a whole nother quest, right? And lo and behold, I don't have MS. I can walk. I'm actually back on my bike now. But through the process, they actually put me on a crazy detox protocol and then some pretty significant supplements. And so I was spending over $700 a month on supplements. And I thought, well, this isn't I can't sustain this. What does this look like? I thought, okay, well, my sister actually works for a supplement company. Let's see what they have to do. And so I thought, all right, fine. We'll buy one of those products. I didn't tell her about it. I just bought it. And, and I started taking it. And I had this fancy test that it was a couple hundred pages, told me everything that I needed for my cells to rebuild. And about 95% of it was in Restore. And so I thought, okay, we'll take it. So I took it for 3 weeks. I felt great. I called my sister and I said, hey, look, I bought your product. I've been taking it for a little while. This is what I think. She said, well, why don't you start with a half scoop? And I said, sorry, I've been taking it for 3 weeks. This is my thought. And she's like, okay, what's going on? I'm like, there's nothing else on the market like this. And here's where I think that you are. And I haven't found anything that's as pure, as bioavailable, that works as well. And it has, it's saving me a crazy amount of money and I feel so much better. So we started talking about things and started talking about my role as a consultant. And I was brought on as a consultant. And then as we moved further down the line, I realized, okay, well, great, this is actually where I want to be. And so I was actually brought on full time. So now I am here full time as a director of product development, working with Tennant Products and get a chance to work with Terry and everybody else on our team, get a chance to think about Dr. Tennant's great ideas and everything that he's actually come up with and our manufacturers to be able to create these great products. So it's changed my life. Changed my family's life, and I'm grateful to be here and start talking about nutrition in a way that I never thought was actually appropriate.
Right. I mean, I love the fact that you actually didn't tell her. You just went for it and you got those supplements and tested out those waters. And wow, that's amazing. I can't believe that. That's so great. I'm glad you're here too. And what a fantastic story. So let's start off the conversation. I think this is a perfect case that, coming off of what you've even been through about, the first myth that people often hear is how, are all vitamins and supplements the same quality? And would it even matter, if you take one of the name brand, supplements that you get at Walgreens, wherever,
Right. And to be completely honest with you, I would say before I went down this entire journey that, I was with the majority of the public that, I can take whatever I want and it's going to be fine.
Yeah.
But let me back up a little bit
Yes.
and actually start with Dr. Tennant and how this whole thing came about, because I think that'll help explain a little bit about what Tennant Products is about and how it actually started. And so Dr. Tennant was working with some critically ill folks, and he was trying to figure out, okay, well, what happens at the cellular level? How can we actually help rebuild those cells, and what needs to happen? And what he found was that there wasn't really anything on the market that was simple, or that didn't have toxins, or didn't have, additional fillers or toxic excipients or preservatives. And it was all in a bunch of different forms. And so he said, okay, well, I want to put everything into one bucket that fills all of the nutritional needs. That's the purest on the planet. There are no fillers, non-GMO, right? It's bioavailable, so easy for your body to use. And then it's all methylated, and it's the purest stuff on the planet. So he partnered with a biochemist, created that. And then doctors who had coming to see him found out that this was working. So they thought, okay, well, great. Well, I want this for my patients. And so the doctors that were coming to see him ended up buying it for their patients. And then just recently, in the last couple of years, we've opened it up to retail. So it's that same quality that was designed for those folks who were very ill, who needed absolutely the best, couldn't have anything else, that kind of started from the top down with no compromises all the way through. So you asked, okay, well, does it really matter what I take? Yes. Yes is a short answer. Yeah. Just because it says B12 on the vitamin B12 on the bottle doesn't necessarily mean it's good for your body. There are many factors that, if it's synthetic, is it not synthetic? Is it actually methylated? Is it bioavailable or easy for my body to actually use? And then how pure is the quality of the source? Is it contaminated in any way? How is this going to react with my body? And so those are all kind of the questions that pop into your head. And when you first start to hear this, you're like, oh my gosh, well, I don't even know where to start, right? So I guess those are the questions. Yeah. So
yeah, go ahead.
Let's dive into this a little bit, right? So two things that we just talked about were methylation and then bioavailability. Well, methylation is actually a process that our body uses to create energy in our cells, right? Studies have shown that about 40% of the population don't actually methylate well. And so that means they don't actually take the energy that's, the food that they're consuming and then turn that around and translate that into energy. And so if you don't do that well, then you're going to have a hard time creating energy, and you're going to have a hard time actually feeling good, right? And moving forward with your life. The other thing that we talked about was bioavailability. Big word for meaning that it's easy for my body to use. And supplements should not require additional energy to achieve the desired result. When you think about folks who are actually taking supplements, they're usually taking it because something is wrong, right? Right. And when you're trying to gain more energy and you're like, look, I will just do whatever I can. I want to feel better, right? So I'm going to buy this. I'll spend whatever I have to. I'm going to take it, and I want to feel better. The challenge is if it requires more energy to achieve the intended result, then your body is actually doing a disservice, right? And so a lot of supplements on the market don't work because they require additional energy to be able to be effective.
And then you're overworking your body. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So that's one of the challenges, right? So just like in the story that I was telling, at Tennant Products, we tried to provide, we have provided the purest quality, the whole food ingredients in their natural form so they can go to work right away. That's why when you start taking the product, then it's like, oh, wait, I have all of, I feel energy, I feel sustained energy. There's a sense of mental clarity. So most supplement companies don't provide bioavailable ingredients or easy for the body to use ingredients. And the synthetic ingredients, which are about 90% of the market share, actually require more work and can sometimes do more harm than good. So that's kind of one of the challenges that go through that.
So, you're better off taking nothing in the long run if you don't have, these products. And that's the right in the long run, because it's more harmful for your body.
Right. So Well, one of these two things, we'll dive in real quickly to vitamin B12. We mentioned it earlier. But vitamin B12 is, there are a couple of versions that we use in our products, methylcobalamin and adenosylcobalamin, and which are the natural methylated forms. There's another form, which is standard, which you'll see if you look at the back of the label on most vitamin B12, it'll say cyanocobalamin. Mm-hmm. And when you actually break that down, your body knows what to do with the cobalamin, but it doesn't know what to do with the cyano part. And that actually converts to cyanide. So then your body knows what to do with part of it, and it doesn't know what to do with this piece over here. And so if your body can't process that well, then it can actually be a toxin, can actually cause harm to your body. And so some people actually feel worse when they take that. If you take the natural form, the methylcobalamin or the adenosylcobalamin, those are actually natural forms. Our bodies know what to do, and then we can actually process it appropriately. So I think the bottom line is that, synthetic, and then we've thrown out GMOs too. GMO is just, a genetically modified organism. And once you've modified something even slightly, it affects how our bodies actually process that and how our bodies actually break that down, and then how we actually absorb the nutrients. And so non-GMO, non-synthetic is actually preferred. And you really need to know what's going on with your body. So know the ingredients, know the sources, know the standards of quality, because it is true, ingredients do matter.
They do. I'm 100% with you. Okay, so great. I'm so glad we covered that. Now I want to move on to the next myth that came up, that why is it so important to, we hear the statement, why is it so important to take supplements? But, I thought that what I'm getting from my fruits and vegetables and foods that I'm eating is everything I need. So how do we address that?
Yeah. It's a great question. And if you've ever heard a grandparent say, well, I used to eat steak and vegetables and potatoes, and I ate those all of my life, and I didn't ever have an issue. Well, the reality is that there is a difference in our nutritional values from where we were in the 70s or decades ago and where we actually are today. The USDA actually did a study, and they said 1 leaf of spinach from 1975 is, to get the same nutritional value, is 10 leaves of spinach today.
Wow.
So there's a significant, and no fault of our farming practices or of the organic foods or the conventional farming practices. We're just trying to feed the population. But the result of how we're actually doing that, are we're depleting the micronutrients in the soil. And the challenge is that the same nutritional values, even in organic foods that we were actually taking, are no longer the same as what they were, decades ago. So
yeah, pretty crazy. I saw these same statistics, in that like an apple for vitamin A is down 41% since 1975. Pretty scary numbers. That's crazy. Or sweet peppers, vitamin C is down 31%, which is crazy. So you'd have to take 5 extra ones just to get to where we were, basically.
Right. That's a lot more. That plate all of a sudden just became a lot bigger with all of those fruits and veggies that are sitting on there. And I have several kids at home and trying to figure out how to get them to eat more spinach, right?
I know. It's another hurdle we have to overcome as parents. I know.
Right. So we talk about organic and conventional, right? And the reality is organic is better, but it's still lacking nutrients, right? Organic still uses pesticides. It's just a matter of degree of how much they're using, and what kinds, and what they use compared to non-organic farms. So the other thing to consider with that is that cross-pollination. So if you have a field that's organic and a field that's not organic, and the bees are pollinating the conventional crop, and all of a sudden then they come over and pollinate because we're not controlling the bees, right? And then they come over and and pollinate the organic crop. Now we have the cross-pollination. And so pesticides used on crops just seep into the soil, and they actually sterilize or kill the micronutrients in the soil. And that's really what we're trying to get at. So when you get a ripe tomato and it's full of color and it has that that vibrant taste and flavor, what you're tasting are the micronutrients and the minerals in the soil. And when you buy it conventional from the store and it's kind of clear, it looks great, right? It's plump, it's juicy, but it lacks that flavor. It's actually lacking the microorganisms and the vitamins, the minerals, and nutrients from that. And that's what actually comes from the flavor. So then the question is, okay, well, great. You've just told me all of this horrible stuff. Now, how do I actually replace that? Well, the answer is that in traditionally farmed produce, when a microorganism breaks down or a biological organism breaks down, it actually breaks down into the soil and then turns into humic and fulvic acids. And humic and fulvic acids in nature are designed to carry and transport nutrients. And so those are what actually sit in the soil. And then as that becomes fertilizer and the plants grow, it actually pulls the nutrients up through the plant, disperses it out into the leaves. And when we eat those plants, then we actually are supposed to receive that same nutritional value. And so that humic and fulvic now translates to us, to our body, and then it can carry out through the cells and then give us the nutrition that we need. So it's kind of crazy that that's how we were designed, right? To eat those things. And we're just trying to do a good thing, but now the end result is that we've actually depleted the micronutrients in the soil. So there are a couple of different things that you can do to help supplement those micronutrients, those microorganisms. Humic and fulvic acids are one of those. But the reality is, even if you're eating well, right? So you're eating balanced, organic, keto, paleo, Mediterranean, vegan, you take your preference, right? The quality of the nutrients have actually gone down drastically over the decades. So your grandpa was right, when he said, hey, look, it's not the same. I just don't understand. Well, you're right. It's not the same. Things happen, but
things evolved, right?
But we don't have to settle, right? So you can still find the actual micronutrients sourced, and we can actually fulfill those and put those into our bodies.
That's amazing. Well, and that brings up a good point with raw materials. I know we're going to go to questions here. Before I do that, I think that was all we were going to talk about right now. Is there any other last thoughts that you had that you wanted to address before we go on over to comments from our live stream?
Yeah, I think the first thing is thank you. I'm grateful to be here. I think the other thing is, I never knew before I got into crisis myself that nutrition matters and that what I'm actually putting into my body actually matters.
Totally.
And so I think that's just the question that we want, right? The goal is not actually to sell everybody the best products on the market. The goal is actually to create the paradigm shift and have folks educated so that they know what's going into their bodies and so that they can actually ask the appropriate questions and get the right information so that you don't have to settle for the new normal, right? Just because you're feeling older or it's harder to get up in the morning or you feel like you can't actually get out of bed or, you snap, crackle, and pop when you stand up, right? I feel better now than I did when I was 20.
That's amazing now. And the days that I take my supplements, it's like that's the most energetic I feel, and I'm in more preventative state. So it's interesting to even see the fluctuation along the course of taking it, but it truly gives me the most energy taking these supplements, and I'm most impactful. I have better cognitive health too. So I'm not biased by any means, but I know you're not either.
Right. Well, I think education is the key, right? And that's really what we're trying to focus on is educating folks, putting the information out there, which is why, we're talking about the 6 myths. We actually created a document that's free that you can download.
Well, that's amazing. I know. And we're going to continue talking about this too in our next, because we've run out of time, guys. So we're not going to go through all 6 myths today. And so we're not going to leave you hanging, but we're going to be in 2 weeks talking more about these additional myths. So stay tuned on that. I would love to go to our questions to see if we have any questions out there before we end this live stream today. Let's see. I do have a question I want to ask you about raw materials. So I had this pop up recently where someone that has been diagnosed with cancer that's going through chemotherapy, is it okay for them to take raw materials, because we've heard that can actually, they have to start the process all over again. And so I wanted to ask, from Tennant Products perspective as the manufacturer, what is that, what would you recommend? Is that something that, or you can give us advice on? Scott? Uh-oh. Did we lose you? I think he went frozen. Uh-oh. Well, guys, it looks like we may be just me now. Hold on.
There
Okay.
you go. Sorry about that.
You're
asking a question about chemotherapy.
Yes. And if, raw materials, that's something that can affect, obviously that's pulling out toxins in our body and clearing those impurities. But with chemotherapy and all those things going on with the body, obviously, how does that come into play?
Yeah, and it gets complicated, right? When we start talking about medications, we start talking about those contraindications, specifically with chemotherapy. And I think as a general rule, rather than getting into that specifically, just a kind of that blanket statement, anything that you're taking, if it's a vitamin, it's a supplement, if it's, an additional nutrient, or even over-the-counter prescriptions, you need to have that conversation with your healthcare practitioner.
Yes.
Raw materials in itself, right, contains humic and fulvic acids. They're designed to help transport things throughout the body, help carry some specific items, throughout the body, and also help detox. And so, sure, that could certainly interfere with several different things. So we actually say that you shouldn't actually take raw materials, 2 to 3 hours before medication. But obviously, if you're actually having anything, if you're taking any additional medication, you need to consult that with your healthcare practitioner.
Good rule
across
of thumb. Yes, absolutely. Because it is something that, number one, if you are taking like you said, medication, you don't want it to override one or the other anyway. So it is probably most beneficial to consult.
And there are herbs and there are different supplements and all of those things that can actually contraindicate here or there with anything that you may or may not be taking. So it's always best to just have that conversation with your healthcare practitioner before you actually.
Well, that's perfect. Well, I appreciate so much of your time today, Scott. Thank you again.